Tensions are rising in the Middle East as they are trying to go over some peace talks. You also have some very fascinating things coming out of Canada, like crime is on the rise and unaffordability is projected to maintain what it's currently doing. Nobody can afford anything and people are panicking. And I mean, I guess you have every right to feel that way. And then in addition to that, we have an absolutely insane update about monkeypox. Just so everyone knows, the monkeypox stuff is going to be towards the end of the video, but I highly encourage you guys stick around for the full thing. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage everyone to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. We are very, very close to 400,000 subscribers, and I would really appreciate it if this was one of the videos that pushed us over the edge or got us even that much closer. We have to talk about how to protect ourselves, right? How to protect ourselves physically, how to protect ourselves mentally, but also more importantly, how to protect ourselves online. And luckily, I've teamed up with Private Internet Access, which is today's sponsor. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. We have teamed up and we are offering my audience 83% off by using code SUNSHINE, which can be linked down in the description or the pinned comment below. We're living in a world of censorship, and Justin Trudeau is at the forefront of this race. Canadians are being censored left, right, and center, which is why you have to protect yourself with a VPN, such as Private Internet Access. What a VPN does is it encrypts your information so that while you're browsing online, you're going to different websites, your information, your personal data is not shared with these massive corporations. It's almost like putting a cloak over yourself. And the best possible way that I like going about this is using the cloak, such as Private Internet Access. Even when it comes to getting the news here in Canada, there's an insane level of censorship. You can't even get Canadian news on Facebook, for crying out loud. Above and beyond the news, if you want to get different content on streaming platforms such as Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, because a lot of these corporations, they geo-lock content, such as in Canada, you can only watch Canadian Netflix, but with Private Internet Access, you can bypass that and you can watch American Netflix, UK Netflix. It's really an interesting thing, and it unlocks a whole new world of content out there. The best part about it is that you're not just restricted to doing that from a computer or a tablet. You can do that from your phone, and you can have a whole lot of devices linked to your Private Internet Access account, which is incredible. Private Internet Access is not only user-friendly, it's extremely affordable, and it is the best way of saying F you to the government. You can get 83% off of Private Internet Access by using the link down in the description or the pinned comment below. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring today's video. Since this is a Canadian channel, we like to start off the same way every single video with the Canadian polls, which they have updated, and I'm not a big fan of them. I don't know. I'm not liking this too much. Pierre Poilievre has gone down in the opinion polls. He was just sitting at 215 projected seats, and now he's gone down 6 points to 209. And it seems like Justin Trudeau has absorbed all of that. As you can see, no one else has budged. Justin Trudeau went from 70 to 75, while Pierre fell 6 points. So that's very bizarre, but it also begs the question, how? Like, what has Justin Trudeau done? What kind of announcement has he done in the past week or 2 weeks that would have brought him up and into the point where more people would have confidence in him? And not to delegitimize or make it seem like I'm trying to delegitimize this, because if that's my claim, then then what the hell is Pierre doing with 200 projected seats, right? Like, so I have to be careful of how I approach this, but also, what the hell has Justin Trudeau done? He's done nothing but negative things. He's been staying a little bit out of the press, but he's also under massive scrutiny for everything that's going on in the world, and his lack of attention to detail or saying the wrong things, trying to appeal to everybody, which is also how everybody is turning on one another. But let me know down in the comments why you think Justin Trudeau might have gone up 5 points. It's very, very bizarre. But nonetheless, let's move on to the ceasefire deal, which apparently Hamas has rejected the deal as proposed by the United States. And this is all coming coming in light at the same time as the U.S. Secretary of State has arrived in Israel with his latest effort to push for a ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza. And so we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out, but it really doesn't seem like there's going to be peace in the Middle East anytime soon. And then in a little bit more scarier news here in America, you have some chemicals that are found in rocket fuel and in missiles is now being found in baby food. This is insane. I just feel like we can't trust anything. You can't trust the government. You can't trust law enforcement. You can't trust food. You can't trust our money. Like, what the hell are we even doing? Why are we living in such crazy times?
A chemical commonly found in rocket fuel and fireworks is found in a wide array of food products, especially those popular with babies and children and drinking water, according to new findings from Consumer Reports. The tests come decades after the chemical perchlorate was first found to be a contaminant in food and water. In 2003, the Environmental Working Group found that chemical in 20% of grocery store lettuce it tested. Perchlorate has been linked to potential brain damage in fetuses and newborn babies, as well as thyroid issues in adults. In Consumer Reports' most recent tests, perchlorate was detected in measurable levels of 67% of 196 samples they tested from 63 grocery and 10 fast food products. The tests found perchlorate in foods packaging most often. Foods in plastic containers had the highest levels, followed by food packaged in plastic wrap and paperboard. Consumer Reports says foods often consumed by children had the highest levels of perchlorate, and fresh fruits and vegetables and fast food also contained the chemical. In 2005, the Environmental Protection Agency set a reference dose for perchlorate of 0.7 micrograms per kilogram of body weight a day.
So this is very, very scary. And I mean, talking about baby food and stuff like that, my wife and I have recently experienced what it's like to grow your own food. We have friends and family that have their own gardens and they have their own strawberries and other berries and vegetables and things like that. And after experiencing not only the more pure taste of those foods, it's also a very fun experience for my at least daughter, who's almost 2 years old. My son is like 35 or 40 days old, so he can't really do anything in that sense, right? But my daughter really enjoyed that. So it's not only a fun experience, not only teaches them how to live off grid or, grow things on your own. You're less reliant on, the system, the government and all that stuff, but it's also way higher quality food. And I just kind of want to pass a question off to you guys. Any of you guys have hobby farms out there, grow your own berries, have your own chickens and stuff like that? Let me know what you guys think down below. And then to kind of circle back to what's happened or what's happening in the Middle East here, a explosion of a truck earlier tonight happened in the capital of Israel in Tel Aviv. Now, reported that it might have been criminal in nature, but it appears that it was a failed major terrorist attack that prematurely detonated. So that's kind of crazy, but nonetheless, still just more addition to the craziness that is seemingly going on. And then also, speaking of craziness, you have Europe Invasion here that's sharing this photo of another Christian church, another church that is just burning somewhere in Germany, which is insane. Like, how many churches have burned this past recent years versus how many other religious, temples and things like that have burned? It just feels like it's very much leaning towards churches that are burning and not other religious, shelters or whatever you want to call them. But let me know if that's a little bit too conspiratorial or if I'm on to something there. And then you also have Leading Report shares breaking news. The political director for the Trump campaign, James Blair, insinuates that Kamala Harris has a serious drinking problem. And all this is coming to light because of a video that has surfaced like this one here, where she's talking and she's kind of slurring her words and not doing a very good job of getting her point across.
When it's intact, it's so strong in terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights and freedoms.
All I know is that the debate between Kamala and Trump is going to be absolutely insane. I'm very excited for that to happen. And let me know if you guys are also very excited. Now we're shifting things over here to Canada. And this is a pretty crazy story because when you think of crime that happens in residential areas, like gang crime or just, bullets that go flying, when you picture that, it's not usually in places like this. Like, these are multi-million-dollar homes in Canada. Once upon a time, it feels like a few years ago, these might have been worth $800,000 or $650,000, but now in Canada, these are $1.5 to $3 million homes. That's crazy to actually say out loud, but it is the truth. And this is in Brampton, nonetheless. So we all know there's just a lot of silliness that's kind of coming out of Brampton recently. And this is what happened. So this individual here has an entire thread of a breakdown of a crime that happened, and he didn't really know what the hell was going on. So his friend said, dude, you won't believe what just happened near my house. I was chilling when I heard what I thought was a firecracker. And then his friend messaged him saying he heard 10 shots and the whole neighborhood chat blew up. After the shots were fired, I legit thought someone was trying to break into my place. The shots were that loud. My neighbors saw the guy limping back into his house, pants covered in blood. We're all just sitting there trying to piece together what happened. It feels like something out of a movie. And that's kind of crazy. The top comment here is crazy, especially in what appears to be a more affluent neighborhood. And I would have to agree. It feels like crime, that type of crime, has been more restricted to lower income housing, not places like that. But I'd love to know what you guys think about that. Is this something normal in Canada? Is just like a Brampton exclusive thing, or is it something that we all have to watch out for? It feels like crime is just skyrocketing, where even in the rich neighborhoods, not only are there car thefts, not only is there vandalism, but now there's gunshots flying. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of this, if the person who was firing those shots, if that was a legally obtained firearm or if it was illegal. And if it was illegal, why did they ever get one? It's illegal. I thought that wasn't a thing here in Canada. Anyways, we're gonna have to wait and see how that turns out. And not too far from Brampton, you have Hamilton Police here that is celebrating 77 years of Pakistan's independence, and they've since turned off their comments, which is insane. I mean, that is something that I never thought I would have seen, where a Canadian police organization is celebrating another nation's holiday or day of independence. I get that Canada is multicultural, but this seems like one step beyond what we have ever really seen. And I just would love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Is this kind of weird? Is this overboard, or is this normal? Let me know what you guys have to say down below. And then, speaking of normal, the average salary needed to live comfortably is, for a single adult, you have $94,000. And you have 2 working adults and 2 children, around $209,000. This was shared by the Lazy Canadian Investor, where a couple that makes $20,000 a month can live a comfortable life in Toronto. Let me walk you through. And then he proceeds to walk through how you need an insanely high amount of income to live comfortably in any major city. And it just seems like, what the hell has happened over the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years? I don't know, but I've heard that 9 years before. Where else have I heard that? And then, speaking of major city, you have, this is just a stock photo of Toronto that the Six Buzz is sharing, but it's saying that 23% of Canadians say they will use food banks in the fall. And the top comment here is anti-taxer. Great work, Justin Trudeau. What a country. And I'm really curious to know, no shame, no judgment at all, Anyone down below in the comments, have you guys ever used a food bank, been to a food bank, or do you know anyone that's been to a food bank? I personally in the past have actually been to a food bank. When I lived in my van, I would meet a lot of different people, all from different backgrounds. And there was a friend that I had made who would frequently go to a food bank to get food for, herself and her kids. And so I had gone with her to see what it was like. And I feel like what I had experienced then to how many people go now is just a wildly different experience. And so I'm just curious how many people in the comments have ever experienced that, going to a food bank. Next up, we have a drone shot here of the aftermath of the wildfires in Jasper, Alberta. As you can see, it is absolutely devastating. Now, a good portion of the town site was actually saved. You can see on the top of the screen here, some of the houses are pretty much completely untouched. There's even a lot of trees that are still standing, which is crazy, right? Not to get conspiratorial, but it is crazy to see so much, houses and foliage that is just burnt, and then surrounding it you have green grass, right? Like it's a crazy thing to understand and to just look at. It's almost contradicting, but this is what it looks like, folks. And I'd be curious to see what the surrounding highway looks like if we ever do get to see that. I'm sure once they open tourism back up again, we're going to get to see what the entry and exit into the national park looks like. But nonetheless, it's going to take many, many, many years to not only replant all those trees, but also rebuild all of these, houses, businesses, lodges, hotels, motels, everything, right? Absolutely devastating all around. And I do believe that they are very close to opening it up for tourists again. If I'm not mistaken, they have opened up the route for trucks, for delivery trucks and logging trucks to go through. But we're going to have to wait and see what the tourism side of that looks like. Next up, we do have a bit of an update here on this Chillak individual, where the RCMP arrested for social media posts that was guised under discriminatory and racially offensive posts. So this happened the other day where the RCMP went in and they arrested somebody for what they were posting online, which is something that's new to Canada. We haven't seen that. We see that happening over in the UK, but here in Canada, it's like, nah, that's never going to happen, man. And then all of a sudden it has happened. And there is a development on this that explains why it's happened. But the RCMP has said this is a sensitive matter that has impacted many members of our community, which is evident in the amount of information that continues to be reported to the Chillak RCMP. And just to kind of add on to that, there's also some other information that has allegedly come out, such as it appears a woman arrested for mean tweets in Chillak was a raging lunatic, and had been going on for quite some time. And then you have a video here of the subreddit in Chillak that shows a bunch of testimonies that say, like, what has happened, what's been said, and just how crazy and aggressive some of these actions had been. And if I'm not mistaken, I did hear somewhere that this person also, it wasn't just because of the posts online, it was also some behavior that happened in real life off of the internet, such as maybe to the extent of harassment. I don't know about stalking, but some other things that obviously were a breach of the law. And then there was also the posting of children, right, in a doxing fashion. I'm not sure the exact context. That's just the only things that I've really read, but I don't have any substance to provide right now as evidence in that video. So it's all allegedly this has happened, but we're gonna have to wait and see how this turns out. And I mean, the immediate shock was, what the hell? Cops are arresting people for what they've been posting on social media. I'm sure everyone went and looked at their timeline and was like, what the hell have I posted? Man, I don't want to go to jail for doing that tweet or whatever it was, or that YouTube video. But nonetheless, it turns out that it wasn't just that. It allegedly was many other factors that were breaking the law, hence being arrested. So we're gonna have to wait and see how this kind of plays out in the long run. Then you have the news here that is sharing a piece saying foreign online streaming services must now pay into a fund for Canadian news. I just feel like Canada's living in its own little bubble.
Some of the world's biggest streaming companies, including Netflix and Spotify, were told today to contribute millions each year to support the production of Canadian content. The CRTC directed them to put 5% of their annual Canadian revenues in a fund. Now, that's expected to inject about $200 million in Canada's broadcasting system every year starting in September. But there are concerns the cost will be passed on to consumers. Here's CTV's Andrew Johnson.
The major players in Canadian streaming are about to lose a significant slice of revenue.
These streaming giants have been getting a free ride. They collect billions of dollars in revenues from Canadian subscribers and then don't pay back a commensurate amount into the Canadian content production landscape like traditional broadcasters do. So it has not been a level playing field.
The CRTC says $200 million generated each year will support local news on radio and television, French and Indigenous content, plus homegrown music. The union representing 30,000 Canadian performers calls it a proud day for its members, adding, "Today showed that the federal government has the backs of Canadian creators." The streaming companies fought the move.
To no one's surprise, all of the streaming giants absolutely hate this. Why would you be happy being forced to pay for something that you've essentially been getting for free for years?
Experts believe in the end, the likes of Disney, Prime, and Spotify won't pay. You will.
We would have to be incredibly naive to believe that these giant tech streaming companies aren't going to pass this cost on to their subscribers.
And this is kind of what's happened in Canada. The government says we need to solve the weather and reduce our pollution. So we're going to tax people. And it's coming out of our pockets to give more money to the government. Then the government says, okay, well, businesses, you now have to pay your fair share in pollution. And so they're taxed, but they just increase their prices so that tax is put on to the price and we end up paying it. And now the same thing is going for streaming services. And I can't help but laugh because if I don't, there's almost an urge to cry just at the overall state of Canada, where the government feels like they can tax other companies and services and it won't affect the price at all. And us consumers, we're just going to continue on with our everyday life going do. No, that's not how the world works. The government doesn't seem to understand that, nor do they seem to care. But I want to pass the question off to you. I mean, it seems a little ridiculous even ask this, but do you support this type of tax on big tech, or do you not? Let me know why. And then we're talking about some real estate here, which is absolutely getting out of hand. So this was in Oshawa, where the prices have pretty much doubled. So you can see in 2020, it sold for $406,000, if you can see that. And then in 2021, it sold for double that, $830,000. And then in 2024, it just sold for $529,000, this house on screen. That is really, really volatile, which is not something that we have really experienced in the Canadian housing market ever, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me, please, if I'm wrong, down in the comments. It just feels like things are changing so rapidly day to day. We're living in this hyper, sensitive and volatile time where it's all up or all down, and there's not really a middle ground. And maybe that's my own bias, maybe that's my own algorithm, but it's almost like a constant state of panic of when are prices gonna be affordable, or are they gonna tank? And that's not really a healthy way to live. And speaking of not healthy, Canada, if you didn't already know this, has 10% of the world's oil reserve. And this might be our saving grace. So we're third in the entire world for largest oil reserve. And we have idiots here that just don't want to sell our oil to other countries, which would make us so filthy rich. And obviously that's not going to happen under a liberal government, but potentially under a conservative government, depending how things get approved, how fast they get approved, we might see one of the biggest booms in our economy that we have ever really seen by cutting the permits, by cutting this red tape that Pierre Poilievre likes to talk about so much. And once all of these things are actually implemented, right, in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now, we could be thriving. We could have houses being built across the country for like reasonable costs. Our price of gas will be extremely reasonable. Everything should be a little bit more stabilized, but we just need a big boom in our economy. And that's really not happening with the Liberals. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments about that. And now we're going to take a look at what's going on with monkeypox. So there's a video here that has surfaced that does a little bit of a dive. I'm going to mute it because it's got some sound that I'm not allowed to play, but I'm going to talk over it. So it starts off with obviously Googling the World Health Organization and looking at monkeypox. And then it looks into the White House and that guy right there, Dr. Dimitri. And who is that? Well, he works for the White House, and people have gone and looked at his Instagram. He's been on the cover of some magazines. He's also part of the what seems to be the LGBTQ+ community, posted some very questionable things on his Instagram. And then he has an entire section of his Instagram dedicated specifically to monkeypox, and it has some speeches or some information about how it's transmitted, such as skin to skin contact, often in the context of sex, right? Now, I need you to hold on to that one because that's a very important one, how it's transmitted. We're going to be talking about that very, very soon here. And then how gay men saved us from monkeypox, from thousands in 2022 to just 5 cases a week in 2023. Proud of the efforts despite stigma within and against the gay community, although it's even the mainstream media has acknowledged that monkeypox is mostly transmitted within a certain community. All right. And then that's kind of the freaky part, is looking into what the next pandemic is, because these are real articles and these are also books that have been written. And we all know that Klaus Schwab has already talked about how there's going to be a next pandemic. A lot of people have been thinking that this would be some sort of cyber attack, but it could not also be that. It could be what we're experiencing right now in the beginning stages. All right. And then, of course, pushing the vaccines for monkeypox, and the video just continues. So I want you to hold on to the idea of how it's transmitted, because we're going to be taking a look at the CDC's website and the World Health Organization's website and how there's actually contradicting information on both of those websites. But first, let's take a look at this video here, because the media is really, really doubling down on the fact that monkeypox has now left Africa and is starting. It's in the beginning stages of, spreading across the world. And it's just, I'll just shut up and hit play. How about that?
The deadly virus plaguing parts of Africa called Mpox will make its way to Canada. That's the warning from some health experts tonight. Canada has said it is prepared for the fight with vaccines ready, but there are also calls for better vaccine distribution globally. CTV's Kamala reports.
The explosion of deadly Mpox cases in Central Africa has doctors in Canada sending out a warning.
I think there's a very high risk that clade 1 Mpox will be seen here in Canada.
The new strain of the virus will almost certainly make its way to Canada.
Because Canada is one of the most highly traveled, high-income societies on Earth, we often are a site where diseases like this can then be the next site of spread.
The newer Mpox variant, called clade 1, surging in the Democratic Republic of Congo, killing more than 500 people, and now spreading to neighboring nations, while other countries in the continent are already dealing with the clade 2 variant that was dominant last year. Clade 1 has also been most recently detected in Sweden and Pakistan. In Canada, no cases of the newer, deadlier clade 1 variant so far, but this year alone, there have been over 160 cases of the milder clade 2 variant that spread earlier, including over 90 in Toronto.
And we actually did a fairly good job.
All right, so this information is changing minute by minute, day by day. And this video was from a couple of days ago. Now, the new updated information is this. Monkeypox was detected in Newfoundland's province's wastewater, yet no confirmed cases in Newfoundland. Trace amounts of the emerging monkeypox virus have been detected in wastewater in this province. The World Health Organization has declared mpox, also known as monkeypox, as a public health emergency of international concerns. This province's chief medical officer of health, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald, briefed reporters this afternoon on the implications of local detection of the virus. So if it's in the water, what does that mean? Well, we're going to be looking at that in just a moment. But Toronto has also recently just said, today, in fact, that they are going to be ramping up vaccines. They're going to be making more. We need to bring in more. We need to nip this in the butt right away. And so they're really going to be pushing this very, very soon. And then you see one of the residents here of Etobicoke saying it's concerning because we've been encouraged to get it and there's just been such a delay, which again, there is all this rhetoric of this mpox is here, it's here, and you need to get vaccinated, but they haven't set up any vaccination, systems. Like, where do you go to get it? With COVID, it took a lot of time and it was extremely controversial and still is to this day. But are they going to have the same thing where you drive to like a local parking lot and you have a bunch of people in hazmat suits and you just stick your arm out and they give you the thing, or a swabbing center? Like, how is this going to work? We're going to have to wait and see. But I want to talk about what's on the World Health Organization's website, and then we're going to compare that to the CDC. So this is right on who.int website. How does monkeypox spread? Now, of course, they say sex, skin to skin, mouth to mouth to skin, right? Such as kissing, but it can also include being face to face with someone who has mpox, such as talking or breathing close to one another, which can generate infectious respiratory particles. Now, this is going to get very controversial. And then right here, we're on the CDC's website. And as you can see, close or intimate contact, and it says direct skin to skin, or contact with saliva, or even pregnancy, you can pass the virus down. And that just seems to contradict what the other websites have been saying. And then in addition to that, when we take a look at this one right here, can mpox spread? Again, this is from the CDC's website. Can mpox spread through water in pools, hot tubs, or splash pads? No studies have found a clear link between mpox and water in pools, hot tubs, or splash pads. The mpox virus is killed in water at the chlorine levels recommended for disinfection in recreational water vessels, right? And so it just seems a little bit crazy that I understand our drinking water doesn't have the same level of chlorine that a pool does, because you're not advised to drink chlorinated pools or saltwater pools, especially with a bunch of other people swimming in that. That's absolutely gross. But our drinking water has a very good filtration system. And if I'm not mistaken, we do disinfect our drinking water, which is why there's a significant difference between city water and well water. And it just seems bizarre that now they're saying it's in our water systems, even here in Canada, according to that article that I shared, and then that I shared again yesterday with, I think it was in San Francisco, where it was in their water. So it just seems a little bit concerning. And I mean, Justin Trudeau hasn't really given a direct announcement as to what's going on. He's off on vacation. He also doesn't look very well himself. A lot of speculation as to Justin Trudeau's own well-being, right? Where he's lost a tremendous amount of weight, which, you know, kudos to anyone who loses weight on that weight journey. But for his case in particular, it's not in a healthy way. It looks like he's contracted something and that's forced him to lose weight. But those are just speculative talking points. The main talking point is the one that is missing. Why hasn't Justin Trudeau done a press release? The World Health Organization has announced this as a public emergency. All of the mainstream media outlets have also been regurgitating the rhetoric that this is a public emergency. internationally, it's apparently, according to that article, in our water system on the East Coast. And even though we don't have this crazy newest updated variant in Canada, there still have been quite a bit of cases, as you saw per that mainstream media video in Toronto. And I know what everyone's thinking. A lot of people are thinking that they're not going to comply, and this is just a hoax, or this is just a waste of time. It's just a distraction, and that all very well could be. But I want to pass the question off to you right now. Instead of saying what you might be thinking, why don't you let me know right now in this video? Is this a waste of time? Will you comply? I feel like the governments and the media lost a lot of people's trust, and that trust, once that's lost by the government and the media, it's so difficult, almost impossible to ever regain. And I feel like even if there was a virus that made 9 out of 10 people drop dead right on the spot, undeniably, like that's what happened, I feel like a lot of people just wouldn't believe the government or the mainstream media based off of what they did several years ago. But we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. That's where we're going to end this video, everybody. On your way out, I would like to encourage you guys to smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.